Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode, as always, is brought to you by AdamandEve.com. Go to AdamandEve.com and type in the promo code football. You'll get 50% off just about any item. Again, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving last week. I know I did. I just recently got back from a cruise. I'm going to Mexico. Had a fun time there. Ate a lot of good food. And pretty much, just had a good time with the family. And like I said, hopefully everyone else had a good Thanksgiving. During the cruise though, I wished I was doing the podcast because I missed week 11 on Sunday when the Bills started Nathan Peterman, and he ended up throwing 5 interceptions. And if you remember from the football podcast I did right before that week, week 11, I wasn't too happy about Buffalo benching Tyrod, and then boom, the guy throws 5 interceptions, and then they start Tyrod this week and they win. But as always, for the recap, let's get into the games. We'll do some stats, and today's going to be a fun show too. Actually, we'll talk about the Sunday night football game from last night between the Steelers and the Packers. We'll talk some winners and losers from Sunday, and then to finish it off, we'll talk some college football, and we'll talk a little bit about this Monday night game. So let's get it going. So to start off, Minnesota on Thanksgiving went into Detroit. Minnesota won that one 30-23. Minnesota's been on a roll so far this season. Case Keenum, another good game, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. Latavius Murray, he had 20 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Kyle Rudolph had 4 receptions, 63 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Adam Thielen had another good game, 8 receptions, 89 yards. Matt Stafford had 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Almost brought them back, but just didn't come close enough. Theo Riddick was the leading rusher. He had 5 carries for 20 yards. And then Marvin Jones Jr. had 6 receptions for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been on fire so far this season, or at least the last few games, actually. The Chargers went into Dallas on Thanksgiving. The Chargers won that one 28-6. The Chargers, they're looking like they might make the playoffs, might win the AFC West, but we'll see. We'll talk a little bit about that too in the third segment. Phillip Rivers had 434 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon had not that good of a game. He had 21 carries for 65 yards. Keenan Allen had 11 receptions for 172 yards and a touchdown. So pretty much did whatever he wanted against that Dallas secondary. Hunter Henry had 6 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown. And Dak Prescott didn't have that good of a game at all, really. Went 20 of 27 passing the ball, had 179 yards passing, and then 2 interceptions. Rod Smith, hopefully Dallas starts him going forward, because I think he's the best back out of that backfield that they have right now. Of course, besides the suspended Ezekiel Elliott. He had 9 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown. And then Dez Bryant, is he overrated? He might just be. He had 3 receptions for 37 yards. And then for the final game on Thanksgiving, it was boring. The Giants went into Washington. Washington won that one 20-10. Eli Manning. What happened to Eli Manning, man? He only had 113 yards, 1 interception, completed 13 out of his 27 passes. Wayne Gallman was the Giants' leading running back. He had 9 carries for 37 yards. Evan Ingram didn't have a good game at all, only 3 receptions for 18 yards. Kirk Cousins, he had 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Samaje Perine had 24 carries, 100 yards, 3 receptions, 30 yards. And then Jamison Crowder had a big game, 7 receptions, 141 yards, and a touchdown. And then now going into Sunday, this one was a huge blowout. Miami went into New England. Of course, New England won that one 35-17. Matt Moore had 215 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kenyon Drake, after Damian Williams got hurt, he played decent, I guess you could say. He played pretty poor the entire game. He only had 9 carries for 20 yards, 3 receptions for 27 yards, and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry, he always shows up for that team. He had 8 receptions for 7 yards, and Tom Brady did whatever he wanted. He had 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Deion Lewis had 15 carries for 112 yards. Rex Burkhead had 13 carries, 50 yards, and had 2 total touchdowns. I believe those were his first 2 touchdowns of the season. Brandon Cooks had 6 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. And Rob Gronkowski, he had 5 receptions, 82 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And pretty much this Dolphins defense couldn't get a stop when they needed to. And whenever they did, the Miami offense couldn't score whenever they needed to. So it's pretty much, I think the spread was 16 points in this game. And New England covered that one. Barely covered it by 2 points, but nonetheless they covered it. So yeah, Miami's now 4-7. New England is 10-2, I believe, 9-2. Either way, they're the best team in the AFC, I think. But actually, we'll talk a little bit about that in the third segment too. Actually, the next segment. Tampa Bay went into Atlanta. Atlanta won that one 34-20. Ryan Fitzpatrick for Tampa Bay had 283 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Doug Martin came out with a concussion. He finished it with the game with 7 carries for 33 yards. Peyton Barber came in. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Mike Evans had 6 receptions for 78 yards. Matt Ryan had a decent game. He went 26-35 throwing the ball, 317 yards and a touchdown. Mohamed Sanu, 8 receptions, 64 yards, threw the ball once, completed it for 51 yards, and that was a touchdown to Julio Jones. And Julio Jones had 12 receptions for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. But in the next segment, I'm going to tell you why, even with that game, he's not the best receiver in the NFL, and he's probably like the 3rd best, if anything. And to finish up that game, Tevin Coleman had a good one. He ran the ball 19 times, had 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But once again, Atlanta won that one 34-20. Cleveland went into Cincinnati. Cincinnati won that one 30-16. DeShone Kizer, he had a decent game, I guess. I'm always going to be on the DeShone Kizer bandwagon because, I don't know, I just really like him as a quarterback. He threw the ball 31 times, completed it 18 times. He had 268 yards passing. Took off with the ball 9 times, had 39 yards and 1 rushing TD. Isaiah Crowell had 16 carries for 95 yards. Corey Coleman had 3 receptions for 64 yards. Andy Dalton for Cincinnati, he had 214 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon had a really good game, 23 carries, 114 yards, 1 touchdown, and then 3 receptions for 51 yards. AJ Green had a so-so game, 5 receptions for 66 yards. As for Tennessee, they headed into Indianapolis. Tennessee won that one 20-16. Marcus Mariota, very disappointing fantasy quarterback. He had 184 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Derrick Henry had 13 carries for 79 yards, and DeMarco Murray, he vultured a TD from Derrick Henry also. Delaney Walker had 4 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Jacoby Brissett had 196 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Frank Gore, 62 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then Jack Doyle had 7 receptions for 94 yards. Buffalo went into Kansas City. Buffalo won that one 16-10. Kansas City is on the downfall. Tyrod Taylor, after being benched for 1 game, came back, won Buffalo the game. He had 183 yards passing, 1 touchdown. LaShawn McCoy had 22 carries for 49 yards, 4 receptions, 30 yards. Charles Clay had 4 receptions for 60 yards. And Alex Smith, he's back to the old Alex Smith, guys. He had 23 completions, threw the ball 36 times, had 199 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Kareem Hunt has fell off also, 11 carries for 17 yards. Tyreek Hill had 7 receptions for 41 yards, and Travis Kelce didn't have all that good of a game either. He only had 3 receptions for 39 yards. Carolina went into New York. They faced off with the Jets. Carolina won that one 35-27. Cam Newton had a bad game passing the ball, but he did what he could to help the team win the game. He had 168 yards throwing the ball, and then took off with the ball 9 times, 28 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey had 7 carries for 62 yards. Devin Funchess had 7 receptions for 108 yards. Josh McCown had a really good game. Completed 19 out of his 36 passes, had 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. No interceptions, I believe. Bilal Powell was the Jets' leading rusher. He had 9 carries for 38 yards. Robbie Anderson had another great game. He's been on fire these last few games. He had 6 receptions, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And as for Chicago and Philadelphia, Chicago went into Philly, faced off with them, and they got blown out. Philly won that one 31-3. Mitch Trubisky had 147 yards passing, 2 interceptions. Jordan Howard had a really bad game, 7 carries, 6 yards. And then Inman, the receiver from the Bears, had 4 receptions for 64 yards. Carson Wentz had 23 completions for Philly out of 36 attempts. He had 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. LeGarrette Blount had a good game, 15 carries for 97 yards. Zach Ertz has been probably the most consistent tight end so far this season. He had 10 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown. And Alshon Jeffrey had a solid game, 5 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. As for New Orleans, they went into LA faced off with the Rams. The Rams won that one 26-20. Drew Brees had 246 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara probably going to be most likely going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I don't see why he wouldn't be, but he had 5 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. And then let's see, he had 6 receptions for 101 yards and then had a touchdown there. And Ted Ginn had a solid game, 7 receptions for 71 yards. Michael Thomas was pretty quiet. He had 5 receptions for 52 yards. Jared Goff had a really good game, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Let's see, Todd Gurley, 17 carries for 74 yards, 4 receptions, and 54 yards receiving. Cooper Kupp had 8 receptions, 116 yards. And Sammy Watkins had 4 receptions for 82 yards. As for the Seattle and San Francisco game, Seattle was the road team in that one. They won 24-13. Russell Wilson had 228 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Eddie Lacy was their leading rusher for that game. He had 17 carries for 46 yards, and actually Russell Wilson also had a touchdown rushing the ball too, so a total of 3 touchdowns from him. Paul Richardson had 4 receptions for 70 yards, and Jimmy Graham only 3 receptions for 34 yards, but also brought in a touchdown also. CJ Beathard had 201 yards, 1 interception. He came out injured for, I think it was with a minute left, and Jimmy Garoppolo came in. Congratulations to 49er fans. He threw a touchdown. Carlos Hyde had 16 carries for 47 yards, leading rusher for them, and then Marquise Goodwin had 4 receptions for 78 yards, and that was their leading receiver for San Francisco. Actually, also, I think Pete Carroll came out and said too that just a little note in Seattle that Cam Chancellor was going to be out for the rest of the season, so that's going to hurt Seattle big time right there. Jacksonville went into Arizona. Arizona won that one 27-24. We'll talk a little bit more about Jacksonville in the third segment actually, but Blake Bortles had 19 completions out of 33 attempts, 160 yards, 1 interception, and then he took off with the ball 6 times, had 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette only had 12 carries for 25 yards. TJ Yeldon was the leading receiver for Jacksonville. He only had 5 receptions for 42 yards, and that's actually their backup running back, probably their third string running back actually. So, like I said, we'll talk a lot more about Jacksonville in the third segment. Blaine Gabbert revenge game, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Let's see, Adrian Peterson had 20 carries for 79 yards, and Larry Fitzgerald had a really off game, 3 receptions for 12 yards. And then Denver went into Oakland. Oakland won that one 21-14. Paxton Lynch had 9 completions out of 14 attempts, 41 yards, and 1 interception before he got injured and came out. Trevor Siemian comes in. He has 11 completions for 21 out of 21 attempts, 149 yards, and 2 throwing touchdowns. CJ Anderson, such a disappointment. He only had 5 carries for 12 yards. Cody Latimer for Denver had 3 receptions, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Derek Carr completed 18 passes out of 24 attempts, 253 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. Marshawn Lynch, 26 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Cordell Patterson had 3 receptions for 72 yards. And Amari Cooper had 1 reception for 9 yards and a touchdown. I believe he got hurt in that game also. And if you're wondering where Michael Crabtree is on the stat sheet, he actually got ejected. He got his chain snatched from Aqib Talib once again. Aqib Talib now owns 2 of Michael Crabtree's chains. It was actually a big fight after that, I think it was. Yeah, it was a big fight between the Denver Broncos and the Raiders. And yeah, like I said, it was just pretty much punches being thrown. I see one player threw a helmet. I think one Denver player threw a helmet, almost hit the Raiders cheerleader. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy fight. But yeah, once again, Aqib Talib, he now owns 2 of Michael Crabtree's chains. But Oakland's 5-6 right now, and good thing they beat Denver because now they're 5-6, and I believe they're right behind Buffalo for that 6th wild card spot. Let me double check it right now. I think Buffalo's currently 6-5. Here I got it. Be patient, and boom, here it is. Yeah, Buffalo's 6-5. And actually, Oakland is currently behind Baltimore, Cincinnati, and the Chargers for who's fighting for that 6th spot. But you're probably going to see the Chargers jump the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are just going to completely Chiefs are done. I don't want to get too much into it, okay? But yeah, Oakland has a chance of making that 6th wild card spot. And like I said, we'll pretty much talk about AFC, NFC teams, winners and losers in the third segment. But yeah, let's get on with it. And then for the final game, which was on Sunday night, I'm only going to give a score for this one because we're going to talk a lot more about it in the next segment. But Green Bay went into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh won that one 31-28. And like I said, in the next segment, we're going to talk more about that game. And I'm going to tell you why Antonio Brown is the best receiver in the NFL and how how I think that he's one of the you know what? We'll talk about Antonio Brown in the next segment, but I just want to, before we get into that, I'm just going to leave you with, you know what? Antonio Brown is the best receiver in the NFL. But like I said, we'll talk more about that game in the next segment. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Once again, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. Hey, are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Have you been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, AdamandEve.com has an offer you're not going to be able to resist. If you go to AdamandEve.com, and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. But that's not all they're offering. Oh no. When you select your one item at 50% off, you'll also receive 3 free adult DVDs, you know, just in case you need that little inspiration. Plus a free extra gift so sensual, I can't even mention it on this podcast. And to top it all off, they're even willing to throw in free shipping on your entire order, and we all know how we love that free shipping. And no, they're not kidding about any of this. So check out AdamandEve.com today for this special offer. You'll get 50% off one item when you type in football for the offer code upon checkout. When you do that, you'll get 3 free DVDs, a free extra gift, and that free shipping. Just use the offer code football at AdamandEve.com. Again, that's FOOTBALL, football at AdamandEve.com. All right, welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. If you missed that last segment, I just basically recapped every game from Sunday from Week 12, gave the stats and score of each game. And for this one, we're going to talk about the Sunday night football game between the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers. And as usual, we just do the scoring stats, and then I'll do a little scoring summary of the game. And then after that, we'll talk about each team. And like I said, it's just pretty much what we do for every Sunday night football recap. So let's get into it. Like I said and mentioned in the last segment, Green Bay went into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh won that one 31-28. Brett Hundley had 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamal Williams had 21 carries, 66 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown. So 2 total touchdowns from him. Really big game from him. Davante Adams had 5 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Ben Roethlisberger had 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and then he also had 351 yards in the air. Le'Veon Bell had 20 carries for 95 yards and also had 12 receptions for 88 yards. And then Antonio Brown, we'll talk about him a little bit later in the segment, but he had 10 receptions for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. So now let's get into the scoring summary. In the first quarter, Xavier Grimble caught a 1-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger, which made it 6-0. They missed the extra point after that, or was it the Twin Bridge? I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So they finished at 6-0 right there. Then Randall Cobb caught a 39-yard touchdown pass from Brett Hundley, made it 7-6. And then Jamal Williams broke off with a screenplay. He caught it 54 yards down the field, which made it 14-6. Second quarter comes. Martavis Bryant catches a 17-yard TD pass from Ben Roethlisberger. And then they get the 2-point conversion with a pass thrown to Antonio Brown, which made it 14-14. Third quarter comes. Davante Adams catches a 55-yard touchdown pass from Brett Hundley, which makes it 21-14 Green Bay. And then Antonio Brown caught a 1-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger, which made it 21-21. Fourth quarter comes. Antonio Brown once again, 33-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger, which made it 28-21. And then Jamal Williams had a 4-yard touchdown run, which made it 28-28. And then with the game on the line and not much time left, Chris Boswell hit a 53-yard field goal to win it, which made it 31-28. And once again, the Steelers pulled that one out. It was a really fun game throughout. Learned a couple of things. Pretty much learned a lot of things throughout the day, for Week 12 through Sunday. Learned about Brett Hundley. Actually, I don't want to say we learned too much about Brett Hundley. He did have a good game, but that also ties into... I know in the last few podcasts I've been talking about how the Steelers have a really good defense, but the corners, like probably the last decade, maybe even a little bit more than the last decade, their corners has been the weak spot on that defense constantly. And Brett Hundley, he's not a quarterback. Like I said, he had 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's not a quarterback who's been tearing it up since Aaron Rodgers went down with his collarbone injury. He's far from that. Brett Hundley he just hasn't played well at all, but against this Pittsburgh secondary, I mean, they made Brett Hundley look like he was playing back at UCLA again. Like I said, the guy had 245 yards and 3 touchdowns, so just really what we really learned from here is that it's going to be the Patriots and the Steelers most likely in the AFC Championship. Those are the two best teams in the AFC for sure. The Patriots got Tom Brady, of course. Deion Lewis is playing well, and Brandon Cooks and Rob Gronkowski have been playing really well so far this season. The defense has been playing well. They don't give up many points. But I think Pittsburgh still has a better offense than New England. So I think as far as New England's defense goes, it's gonna get canceled out, just based off of all the firepower that Pittsburgh has. But if they're gonna want to compete with the Steelers, with the Patriots, then they're really gonna need to figure out those secondary problems, because Tom Brady's gonna exploit them, and you got to play perfect when you're playing the Patriots. But nonetheless, the Pittsburgh still came out with the win. I believe they're 9-2 now. I think they should be the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. Let me double check that. But as far as it all goes, they really need to get that secondary. They need to figure something out. I know Joe Hayden, I don't believe he played last game or in the Sunday night game, so maybe that's what it was. But when you make Brett Hundley look like a good NFL quarterback, then there's a problem. But other than that, we're going to talk about each team right now. I know I just talked a little about the Steelers, but I want to talk about Antonio Brown a lot more right now. So we got receivers in the league like Julio Jones, you got DeAndre Hopkins, and then AJ Green does his thing from time to time. Right now, I think the 3 best receivers in the league are Antonio Brown, and then DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones. And it's in that order too. I think Antonio Brown is by far the best receiver in the league. Then DeAndre Hopkins comes in second, and then Julio Jones in third. And I think Antonio Brown right now, he's the best receiver in the league also from out of Pittsburgh, is because Julio Jones, like I said, I think it was he had 254 yards receiving in this last game against Tampa Bay. Let me double check it. I think, pretty sure it was 254 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. But Julio Jones is not someone who's consistent at all. And he's a really great receiver, but he's not as complete as a guy like Julio, as Antonio Brown. Man, I'm just really off today. But Antonio Brown, he's good at running routes. He's fast. He's got good hands. Okay, he can go up and get the ball, and he could do everything. Okay, Antonio Brown, to me, he's by far the best receiver in the league, and he's probably my favorite receiver of all time. As far as receivers I've gotten to watch, I know people might say, "Oh, what about Randy Moss?" But I really only got to catch him his best years when he was with the Patriots for that 1 year. And then when he was with Minnesota, I vaguely remember it, but I wasn't really old enough. I was about maybe 6 or 7 around there at the time when Randy Moss was with the Vikings. And after that, he really didn't pick it up until he got to the Patriots. But as far as me watching receivers, as far as right now, Antonio Brown is by far the best receiver in the league. And honestly, I think he's going to go down as a top 5 receiver of all time too, probably even top 3. It's just the guy's crazy with how he plays the receiver position. I was saying yesterday or Sunday night, Green Bay was trying to double Antonio Brown, and it worked for the first quarter. But after that, he pretty much just exploded, and they couldn't do anything to stop him at all. Big Ben had some time to throw, and then once Antonio Brown's able to get into space and pretty much he has time to find the open route and do all that, you're not going to be able to stop him at all. That's exactly what happened yesterday. The guy, there was one catch. It was late in the fourth quarter too, when the Pittsburgh was driving down right before they hit that game-winning field goal. Big Ben threw it, and there was two Green Bay defenders right next to Antonio Brown, and Big Ben, this is one of his better things too. Big Ben always has a way of putting the ball where no other player can get it besides his receiver. I remember thinking about it too when he threw that ball to Santonio Holmes in the Super Bowl. It's pretty much Santonio Holmes was the only guy who could catch that ball, and he did, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. But talking about Antonio Brown in this catch, you see 2 players from the secondary from the Packers right around Antonio Brown, and then boom, Big Ben fits it right in perfectly for him. But Antonio Brown goes up, and I don't know how he managed to keep his feet on the ground too, both of them, and drag him and still come down with the ball. But he did. It was right on the sideline too. It was just a crazy catch. And after that, you pretty much knew, you know what, Pittsburgh's going to win this game. They're just going to keep feeding Antonio Brown right here on this last drive, and Boswell's going to be able to hit this field goal, and sure enough, he did. But Antonio Brown, by far the best receiver in the league right now. He's I think he's first in yards. I think he's second in touchdowns and first in catches. So, like I said, he's more consistent than any other receiver in the league. Like I said, Julio Jones, he'll have one of those monster games, but he's not going to give you 100 yards a game like Antonio Brown does, or he's just not going to put up the same amount of production consistently like Antonio Brown does. And DeAndre Hopkins, he he's the closest to Antonio Brown, I think, right now as far as the best receiver goes, because even with Deshaun Watson going down, Tom Savage has been out there, but you still see DeAndre Hopkins out there putting up at least 100 yards and a touchdown every game. So I guess they're pretty even with the stats go. But like I said, it's just I think Antonio Brown is the most complete receiver in the NFL, and that's what puts him above DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins, he can pretty much do almost everything that Antonio Brown does, but I just think Antonio Brown is a better route runner than DeAndre Hopkins also. But they're both really great players. Let's see what else. Oh, as far as Green Bay goes, let's see. I think the record now is let me double check it right here. I think they're 4-7. Actually, they're 5-6. I was way off. But yeah, they're 5-6. And let's see, Atlanta 7-4. So Green Bay is about 2 games back of Atlanta right now. And Green Bay. Let's see, who do they got next week? This is because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to try and come back by week 15. They got the Bucs next week. Tampa Bay also has a terrible defense, so maybe, and it's in Green Bay too, so maybe you could see Brett Hundley in there. Him and Devontae Adams have been had a really good connection so far since Aaron Rodgers came out, and Jamal Williams has been playing really well. So maybe Green Bay can get a game out there that'll put them to 8-6. And then after that, they got the Browns. That's another winnable game right there. So maybe they can win those two. Let's see, we're in week 12, so that'd be week 14. And then Rodgers would be coming back week 15, which would be the weekend of the 16th and 17th, right there, Saturday and Sunday. I'm saying Saturday and Sunday because we actually do have some Saturday games on the 16th, but that's going to be fun to watch. I always miss those Saturday games. But yeah, when Aaron Rodgers is projected to come back, or at least when he's going to try, I think when he's eligible to come back is when they play the Panthers. That'd be in Carolina. So I mean, Green Bay at the time, they should be 7-6 if they're able to beat the Bucs and the Browns. So we'll see about that. So it'd be Rodgers versus the Panthers, and then after that week they got. Let's see, who do they got after that? They got they got the Vikings, which would be on another Saturday game actually. Wow, we got a lot of Saturday games. I'm really excited for that. But yeah, they'd get the Vikings, and then they'd get to finish out the season. They'd go up against the. Let's see where they at. They go against the Lions. So, I mean, if Brett Hundley can get them back to 7-6, and then Aaron Rodgers is able to come back, you know what? You can't really sleep on the Packers. They still have a chance of making the playoffs, and it's just going to be interesting to see. As far as the Steelers go, like I said, it's going to be between them and the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, I believe. But let's check the Steelers' remaining schedule. I think they got the Patriots coming up. Might be next week. I can't remember exactly. Let me double check it. But yeah, like I said, it's gonna be between they get the Bengals next week, and then they got the Ravens, and then the Patriots, and that's gonna be a good one for Pittsburgh since they're playing at home, and then they got the Texans after that, and then the Browns. So the Steelers should win out, and see, yeah, not win out. They might take a loss against the Patriots, but that one's gonna be close. They're gonna be able to beat the Bengals. They're gonna be able to beat the Ravens. They're gonna be able to beat the Texans, and they'll definitely beat the Browns. So right now, the Steelers really have a good chance of finishing 13-3. I think 13-3 is like the minimum of where they're going to finish. Like I said, I think they're going to win all those games, and the only reason they'd have that third loss is because of the Patriots. But they have a good chance of going 13-3, 14-2. And Pittsburgh, like I said, their offense is extremely better than the Patriots right now. And their defense has been playing really well. It's just the corners right there, and the corners and pretty much the entire secondary. They were playing pretty well in the beginning of the season and like pretty much throughout the middle, but these last couple of games, I feel like they've been letting them down. So that's pretty much been their Achilles heel on defense. So I guess we're just going to see if they're going to be able to figure it out. If not, then it's going to be tough to take it on a team like the Patriots. But like I said, it's going to be between those two teams. The AFC is extremely weak, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment when we're doing our winners and losers. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, but that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to do winners and losers from Sunday's games. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. We're going to talk about the Patriots and Steelers a little bit more. We'll talk about Denver, and then we'll talk about a few of the NFC teams. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. If you missed that last segment or you just need a quick reminder, we talked about the Sunday night game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Green Bay Packers. Pittsburgh pulled that one out 31-28. Chris Boswell hit a game-winning field goal to win that game, and now Pittsburgh is 9-2 and Green Bay is 5-6. But now for this segment, we're going to do some winners and losers. We're going to break it up into each conference. I'm going to do winners and losers from the AFC and then winners and losers from the NFC. So let's just get right into it. Start off with the winners for the AFC. Let's start off with the Patriots. Those are winners right there. Right now, they got Dion Lewis playing well. Tom Brady's, him and Carson Wentz are probably the top two in the running right now for the MVP. Gronk's playing well. Brandon Cooks is playing extremely well. And that defense, they give up a lot of yards, and but they don't give up points really at all. I think they've been able to hold opponents down to less than 20 per. Don't know if it's every game, but it's pretty much for the majority of the season so far. But yeah, as far as the Patriots go, like I said, I mean, Tom Brady, he's 40, but it doesn't really matter. He's going to play till he's 45 just because of how terrible that AFC East division is. And it's just his play, like you're waiting for Tom Brady to really stop playing like well or as well he has been. And I know people thought he would be after the first couple of weeks in the season. But it's like Tom Brady, each of the last couple of seasons, like you see, like they'll lose to the Chiefs or whoever. Like usually, yeah, they lose to. I think they've lost to the Chiefs in the early on in the season, the last 2 years, and everyone likes to think, oh, is Tom Brady down? What are they gonna do? Is this it for the Patriots? And then it's pretty much like Tom Brady starts off the season rusty, and then once a few games goes by, then boom, Tom Brady's turning into Tom Brady. He's lighting up defenses, and they really have no answer for him at all. And then, like I said, now with Dion Lewis playing well, because you know how New England usually does it. They really don't have a solid running back, or at least a running back that they can depend on, because they usually switch in and out between them. But Dion Lewis has been playing well. And then when Dion Lewis isn't out there, they'll have Rex Burkhead, and he does well too. He does his job completely well. Rex Burkhead is like a Danny Woodhead type of player out there, and that's pretty much how they utilize him too. But yeah, Patriots are a winner from the AFC. Like I said, right now they're 9-2. I believe they're the second seed in the AFC right now, and they're gonna win that division. But they got a game going up against Pittsburgh, I think, in 3 weeks, and that's pretty much gonna tell us who the top dog in the AFC is. But like I said before, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna meet each other in the AFC Championship. I really don't have any doubt about that. Let's see. Any other winners from the AFC? Obviously, the Steelers are a winner. Like I said, they really struggled against Brett Hundley. Their secondary did, but either way, they still got the win. They're 9-2. I'm not really sure who I want to consider the best team in the AFC right now. I mean, the Patriots are playing well, but the Steelers, like I said, they got a bad secondary, but that's not something that's really holding them back because, like I said, they're 9-2 and they're playing well. I'm gonna go with the Steelers right now. They're the number one seed, and they by far have a better offense than the Patriots. It really doesn't come close. Of course, the Patriots got Tom Brady, but they don't have Antonio Brown. They don't have Le'Veon Bell. They don't have Martavis Bryant. They don't have Juju Smith-Schuster. They got Gronk. They got Brandon Cooks, and Dion Lewis has been playing well, but Gronk is the only player, I guess, that you could say that puts up the kind of production that those players do for the Steelers. Dion Lewis couldn't shine Le'Veon Bell's cleats. He's not worthy of that, okay? Le'Veon Bell by far better than Dion Lewis. Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, the Steelers have the best running back in the league and the best receiver in the league, so I'm going to consider the Steelers the best team in the AFC right now. It's just they need to figure out that secondary, at least figure out a way to patch up those holes till the end of the season, pretty much till the season's over and they're able to play in the Super Bowl or after that. They really need can't remember exactly if they've been drafting cornerbacks early on in the draft the last couple of years, but either way, if they have or haven't, it doesn't really matter. They just need to find that one shutdown guy that they can throw back there. Because once you got one side of the field shut down, then it's a lot easier to shut down the other side. But we'll see how it all goes. Let's see. Do we have any other winners? The AFC is extremely weak, so there's not too many good we could say. I guess my third winner is going to be my final winner, too. The AFC is terrible. My gosh. But my third winner are the Oakland Raiders. They're 5-6 right now. Ooh, actually, I forgot. Why did I forget about this team? Before I even, let's talk about the Raiders. But after this, we got one more winner. All right, so yeah, the Raiders beat the Broncos 21-14. The Raiders, I'm considering them a winner from this weekend, but I don't know. It's like the Raiders are weird. They stress me out. It's like how you have a great offense, And but it's just they haven't been able, like, they show glimpses of what we all expected them to be early on in the season, but they just haven't been able to put it together. Like, their defense is garbage. That's like putting it nice. I say their defense is just terrible, and that's probably what's been holding them back. They fired Ken Norton Jr. I think it was last week too. But yeah, it's just their defense is what's holding them back. But like I said, right now they're 5-6. They're currently 1 game back of Buffalo in that 6th wildcard spot. Kansas City, I think that they're 6-5, but I don't see Oakland winning that division. Actually, my next winner is going to be who I'm predicting to win that division. But yeah, it's just the Raiders. I mean, they started off, I can't remember exactly what they started off, but now they're 5-6. They win next week, and they are at 500. Let me see who they got next week. They got the Giants next week, so that should be an easy win right there for the Raiders. Like I said, they're already favored by 7 right now in that game. So yeah, they should be 6-6 right there. Then they got the Chiefs after that, and the Chiefs are. What happened to the Chiefs? Actually, we'll talk about them in a few moments. But yeah, so the Raiders are the Raiders should be able to pull it out against the Chiefs. But yeah, that's my third winner right there. And then for my final winner out of the AFC, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. Would you look at them Chargers? They beat the Cowboys. I think it was the 28-6. Right now they're 5-6, and they're my pick to come out of the AFC West and win that division. Phillip Rivers is playing lights out right now. And it's pretty much like the old Phillip Rivers is out there right now, okay? Because Melvin Gordon really hasn't been playing all too well the last few games. Let me see in Buffalo. I didn't get to check the game against Buffalo stats. He had 20 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown against Buffalo. They won that one 54-24. Jeez. But yeah, next up they got the Browns, then the Redskins, then the Chiefs, the Jets, and the Raiders. This is an easy schedule going forward for the Chargers. Like I said, they're going to be able to beat the Are they going to be able to beat the Browns? Last year they didn't. They gave the Browns their first win, I believe it was. Are they going to be able to do it? Are they going to do it again this season? Probably not. The Chargers, I think, are going to be able to beat the Browns. They can beat the Redskins. Against the Chiefs, that's going to be the game, I think, right there. That's going to decide the division winner right there. Then they got the Jets, and then they're going to play the Raiders in the last game of the season, and I have no doubt that they'll beat the Raiders. It's just the Raiders, like I said, I consider them a winner. They're going to have a chance to fight with the 6th seed, but that defense is what's killing me right now. But yeah, right now, like I said, the Chargers are 5-6. They destroyed Dallas on their home turf on Thanksgiving, 28-6. And like I said, I just think that the Chargers are going to win the AFC West this season. But let's see. Let's go for losers in the AFC. This is going to be a fun one because there's a lot of them. Losers, the Dolphins. Their season's done. Offense is done. Adam Gase pretty much just needs to salvage whatever he can so that way he's not on the hot seat. Let's go another loser. Let's see. All right, so the Bills beat the Chiefs, okay? But there's 2 losers from this game, and they're both teams. The Bills are a loser. Bills are a loser because they started Nathan Peterman the last game where they got blown out by the Chargers, and he threw 5 interceptions. And there was never, ever a reason for them to bench Tyrod Taylor other than they just don't like the guy, and it's pretty much been proven, okay? They were trying to trade him early on in the beginning of the season, and he was in the offseason. They were trying to trade him, and then they get blown out by the Saints, which wasn't his fault at all. I mean, he wasn't the one who gave up 40-plus points against the Saints, I believe it was. But, yeah, so the Bills, those are big losers right there. I'm not going to be professional, stuff like that, but actually, yeah. This is my professional opinion, okay? I don't think the Bills are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they deserve to make the playoffs just because of how incompetent that front office and coaching staff is. Why are you going to take out Tyrod Taylor when he constantly gives you the best chance to win? Nathan Peterman, I don't know why they did it, it just makes no sense. It's kind of infuriating to see a team like why would you do that? It makes no sense. And this is I know this is kind of like last week's news, but I missed last week because I was on vacation. But I don't understand why you're throwing Nathan Peterman out there when you're currently in the wild card spot, and they pretty much threw away a game against the Chargers. I mean, we're not sure if they would have even won even with Tyrod out there because the Chargers have been playing well, but it would have been a lot closer than 54-26, I think it was. And I guarantee you Tyrod Taylor's not throwing 5 interceptions against the Chargers. So it really makes no sense for the Bills to have even done that. So they're a loser just because of how incompetent they look after beating the Chiefs this week with Tyrod Taylor. I really hope Tyrod Taylor, I hope he gets cut or just pretty much demands a release or he gets traded because the Bills don't deserve him. And this is why the Bills have the longest playoff drought in the league right now. It's just pure incompetence. I don't get it at all. And, of course, the Chiefs, they're a big loser. They're done. I'm calling the Chiefs. They're done. They have no chance. it's over. Okay, they're 6-5. It's over. Don't overthink it. Don't underthink it. It's over. This isn't an overreaction or anything like that. It's true. Alex Smith has turned into the game manager. Alex Smith, he's looking like the Alex Smith that played for the 49ers the first couple of years for his career. Let's see. He only had 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Okay, Andy Reid has pretty much taken Kareem Hunt out of the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's only given him like around 10 to 11 carries a game. Kareem Hunt only had 17 yards in the last game. And then if Alex Smith isn't playing well, then Tyreek Hill isn't going to play well. He only had 7 receptions. He had 7 receptions, but only for 41 yards. This is like the Chiefs a couple of years ago when they had Jeremy Maclin, and then when they had Dwayne Bowe, I think it was, they had that one season where I think it was the entire season, or it was pretty close to the entire season. I think around week 15 it might have been, where Alex Smith did not throw a touchdown to his receivers at all in the season. Or like I said, it might have been week 15 is when he finally did, but it's just the Chiefs. Why? I don't understand how they can do this. Like, they started off so well. They were in the mix with the Steelers and the Patriots, and pretty much they took themselves out of it. This isn't because they've had a hard schedule or anything like that. They've just pretty much just been beating themselves week in and week out. I think they're 4. They've lost 4 out of the last 5, maybe 5 out of the last 4 out of the last 5, I believe it was. They've lost, and it's pretty much, it's just, I don't get it, dude. I don't get why the Chiefs are. I don't know. I have no words for the Chiefs. They're done. That's all I'm going to say about that. And let's see, the Jaguars. We're actually going to do winners and losers for the NFC in the next segment too, because we're starting to run out of time. But yeah, so my final loser for the AFC are the Jaguars. Jaguars, I think they're 7-4 currently. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win their division, but they're a loser because week in and week out, they don't only have to try and beat the opposing team, they got to beat Blake Bortles too. That guy gives them no chance to win whatsoever. It's just, I don't even know how they got 7 wins with that guy quarterback. He's terrible. It's just, the AFC is just a complete mess right now, and it's just frustrating to think about just because, the Chiefs. All right, take a breath, Jesse, take a breath, okay? Let's just talk about the Jaguars, okay? They have a great team, okay? Great, best defense in the league by far. Great running back in Leonard Fournette, okay? Marquise Lee is a solid receiver. Allen Hurns can do his thing from time to time, and then Allen Robinson was out for the entire season in the beginning of the season. So I think it was week 1 or right before that, and preseason when he came out for the rest of the season. But the Jaguars, they have a Super Bowl ready team. I got to be careful saying that, but I'm just gonna throw that out there. They have a Super Bowl ready team. The only position where they're not ready and why they're not going to make it out there or not going to compete for it this year is quarterback. Blake Bortles is terrible. He should be a backup in the NFL right now. He shouldn't be starting for an NFL team. He's not that good. And like I said, the Jaguars every single week, they have to beat the team they're playing, and then they have to beat Blake Bortles, okay? They had the ball with little time left. It was 24-24, and Blake Bortles just pretty much gives it up for them, and that's how Arizona got the ball back, and boom, Blaine Gabbert revenge game. But, that's how he got the win right there, and it's just Jacksonville, they're so close. I mean, I really hope they end up with Lamar Jackson in the draft. Just cut Blake Bortles as soon as the season ends. He's terrible. But also another idea that was kind of thrown besides Lamar Jackson going to that team was by Tate, who is the big boss guy around here. He runs the MMA podcast. Check that out. But he told me, I was talking to him right before I started this podcast. We were talking about how I wanted Lamar Jackson to go to Jacksonville because I feel he'd be a really good pickup right there for them, and I feel like they'd be even way better with he's going to be way better than Blake Bortles. I'm going to say that right there. They're 7-4 with Blake Bortles. I think that Lamar Jackson's going to be way better than Blake Bortles too. So I think it won't be a drop off or anything like that. They'll be even better. But he was telling me that Eli Manning is the name to look out for. He was pretty set on Eli Manning playing for the Jaguars. I know they got a Tom Coughlin in the front office too. So, and he was telling me too about how Bob Ben McAdoo, Bob McAdoo. Is it Ben McAdoo? Doesn't matter. That guy shouldn't even be coaching. So, so like the Giants, he doesn't like Eli Manning, and even if they were to fire McAdoo and their GM's probably, and the GM and the coach are probably going to want to bring in their own quarterback. 'Cause, I mean, how many more years does Eli have left? I mean, they're going to be terrible, so they're probably going to get a guy like Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold. So Eli Manning to the Jaguars is something, like, I'm not too high on Eli anymore. I feel like he's only got 2 years, but like I said, they got Super Bowl aspirations. They got a Super Bowl ready team, so Eli won't have to do much on that team since they got Fournette and a good receiving corps. So we're going to see about that, but that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to talk about the craziness and chaos of college football, and then we're going to do winners and losers for the NFC. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome to the GSMC. Welcome back, actually, to the GSMC Football Podcast. In that last segment, we talked about the AFC winners and losers, and for this segment, we're going to do a couple of NFC winners and losers, and then we're going to talk about the chaos going on in college football. So let's just get it started. First off, my first winner for the NFC is the Atlanta Falcons. They beat the Bucs 34-20, and now the Falcons are currently in the 6th wildcard spot. They're 7-4, and you know what? I think they're going to stay there. They're a really good team right now. It looks like I don't want to make any assumptions or anything like that, but when Devontae Freeman went down and Tevin Coleman came in, I don't know what it was, but it's like this offense like clicked almost. I'm not trying to say Devontae Freeman was holding them back or anything like that. I'm just throwing something out there, you know? It's just like once he went down and Tevin Coleman was taken over, I'm not sure if there's any correlation between it or anything like that, but just once Tevin Coleman came in, boom, the offense just started playing extremely better. So, yeah, that's one of my winners right there. Julio Jones had a big game against Tampa Bay. He had 254 yards receiving. You'd like to see him be a little bit more consistent, not putting up numbers like that, because obviously that's almost impossible to put up over 200 yards, let alone in every game. But like you want to see him out there at least putting up like 7 receptions, 100 yards a game, because like I said, he's probably, to me, he's the 3rd best receiver in the league, with DeAndre Hopkins being the 2nd and Antonio Brown being the 1st. But we're just gonna see if he's gonna be able to be consistent. That's all you got. That's all we really want from Julio Jones. Just be consistent. So we're gonna see how that goes. But yeah, I think they're gonna end up finishing in that last wildcard spot. Let's see, what else do we got? Who else do we got for a winner? Winner, the Panthers. They're currently 8-3 and in the 5th wildcard spot. And I think that there's going to be 3 teams coming out of the NFC South for them in the playoffs. It's going to be Carolina, Atlanta, and the Saints. But yeah, right now Carolina, their offense is inconsistent. Yeah, their offense is inconsistent, but Cam Newton's always going to give them a chance to win. And Thomas Davis in that defense, I say Thomas Davis because that's one of my favorite linebackers in the NFL right now. But yeah, Thomas Davis and them are always going to give them a chance to win. And right now they're 8-3. And then let's look at their schedule going forward. Let me find them real quick. Where are they at? Here, I'll just do it from here. But yeah, like I said, right now they're 8-3. They do have a chance at pulling out that division. They got actually right here. They got the Saints coming up next week. They're both 8-3 right now. It's going to be in New Orleans, and actually this is going to be tough for them because they got the Saints both 8-3. If Carolina wins that, they're 9-3. They're going to be number 1 in the division. But then they got the Vikings after that, and then they got the Packers after that. And you're probably thinking, the Packers aren't much of a threat, but that could be the week where Aaron Rodgers comes back. So Carolina's really got to get 2 out of these next 3, I think, in order for them to just keep it up. But like I said, either way, even if they weren't, I still think that they have a good chance of making the playoffs. Let's see who else do we got. Winner. I'm going to go winner, San Francisco 49er fans. I know they were extremely excited because their boy Jimmy G finally came in and threw a touchdown. I think Reuben Foster after the game wasn't too happy about the fans cheering when CJ Beathard came out of the game with an injury, but I don't think they really cheered because CJ got hurt. I know everyone's been really waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo to come out and for them to see what he could do. He looked pretty good. He only completed 2 passes. I think he took off of the ball once, almost got the first down from that, but looked like he had good pocket presence. I'm not too high on Jimmy G right now, only because of he's only started 2 games, so there's a small sample size. But in the little time that he was shown in that last minute, like he looked like an NFL quarterback. He looked like he just, like I said, his pocket presence. I wasn't really looking for him to complete passes or anything like that. I was more looking to see how he's in the pocket, how he gets out, his throws, how they look, and everything checked out pretty well. So I mean, maybe he'll start next game. We'll see. I know 49er fans want him to, but yeah, overall, winner right there, 49er fans, even though they lost. We'll go loser, the Seahawks. They got lost. Pete Carroll made it official that Cam Chancellor is going to be out for the season. Like I said, they beat the Niners 24-13, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think the Rams are going to win that division. I think the Falcons and Panthers, it's going to be 3 teams out of the NFC South. Just let me make it simple. 3 teams out of the NFC South are going to make the playoffs. So really just don't see the Seattle going forward. And let's see, who else do we got? We'll do a final. We'll do another loser. And then let's see. There's not really too many losers from the NFC because, we'll do, this is going to be my final loser too, actually, because there's not really too many. You can't really talk down or talk bad. Not even talk bad. There's just really not too many teams in the NFC that are they're done or anything like that, and they're just playing really bad. It's not like the AFC. The NFC has a lot of good teams, but for my final loser is the Dallas Cowboys. I know in the last couple, it's been 2 games since Zeke's been serving his suspension, and I was pumping up that Dak Prescott bandwagon. I was saying, he's a good quarterback. He's going to do fine without Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to win them games. It's not true. Dak looks like a poor man's Alex Smith out there. And not a good Alex Smith either, like the game manager Alex Smith. Dak Prescott does not look good out there. I mean, he's completed most of his passes. I think he went 20 of 28 on Thanksgiving. Let me double check that. Because you got to be correct. He went 20 of 27. That's why we double check things. But he only had so 20 of 27. If you weren't to look at any other stats from him, 20 of 27, he must have had a decent game. No, he only had 179 yards and 2 interceptions. So, and I know the offensive line really hasn't given him time, but even when he does have time to throw, he really just doesn't look like a good quarterback out there. And I'm not saying Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback, but he's not looking like the quarterback that we see when Ezekiel Elliott's out there. And Ezekiel Elliott, I'm not even sure if he's paying attention to any of this because I know he's probably in some country overseas, probably like Germany or whatever, just turning it into a machine, just trying to get rebuilt for when he comes back off his suspension. But Dak Prescott, obviously just not the same quarterback he is when Ezekiel Elliott is out there, and he's a game manager. And that's something that's something some people had said about him, even with Zeke out there. I didn't really believe it, and the majority of us didn't believe it, but turns out those people are right. So yeah, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, really, those are losers right there. Their season's pretty much over. But I said I was going to talk about the Monday night game a little bit. I'm just going to talk briefly about it because I really want to talk about college football. There's a lot of chaos going on, and it's just pretty much no clue who's going to end up in that top 4 because if one team loses, then this team's in, this team wins, and the other team is in. But yeah, we'll talk about that right now. But as for the Monday night game, it's going to be the Texans going up against the Ravens. It's going to be in Baltimore. The Ravens, honestly, there's not much to say about this game, okay? I think Baltimore's defense is going to feast on that offense. DeAndre Hopkins is probably going to have around 70 yards, a touchdown, probably 5 receptions, 4 receptions, but that's going to be it. Tom Savage is going to throw 2 picks. I wonder if there's a bet I can make on that, like on the mybookie.com, I think it is. But I think Tom Savage is going to throw 2 picks. I think that's like a given right there. Like that's the minimum right there. I'm my pick is the Ravens for this game, but it's like Tom Savage throwing 2 picks, like boom. I know it sounds kind of weird, but boom, like that's what I'm set on right there. Tom Savage is going to throw 2 picks, okay? Lamar Miller's probably going to have around 70 total yards, maybe a touchdown, but not too much from him. And like I said, it's just going to be the Baltimore Ravens feasting on that Texans offense, and then it's just going to pretty much give Joe Flacco and that offense all the time in the world to do whatever they want. I know the Texans defense hasn't been playing well. The Texans are 4-6 and Baltimore's 5-5. So if they win, they're going to be tied with Baltimore for that 6th spot, or Buffalo for that 6th spot. So we'll see how that goes. But let's go to college football. This weekend hurt me, dude. The U. Why did the U have to lose the Pitt on Friday? Why? I was on the cruise. I was on the cruise hanging out with family, and then I saw that this game was on, so I was like, oh, I'm going back to the little room, my little. I don't even know if you call it a hotel room or a cruise room. I'm not sure, but I went back to my room, and I watched the game, and it just it hurt so bad. He's like, come on, Miami, come back, please come back. And they didn't, dude. Pitt just held him off. That quarterback, I think he's a freshman. I think it was the first game he started too. Let me double check his name from Pitt. Pickett from Pitt. He's a freshman. That guy played extremely well too against the U. Miami has a really good defense, and like I said, Pickett just played extremely well. I was really surprised with how he played. And then I think it was 4th down, and the Pitt was gonna run a play. It was near the red zone of Miami. Yeah, they were near the red zone, and they call let me see who the running back was for that too. I think it was Allison, who was a running back. He had 14 carries that game. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But he fakes the handoff to him, and then you see like the entire offensive line, everyone go to that side of the field, and then boom, you see the U's defense follow there. And then all of a sudden you see Pickett take off with the bootleg, and boom, takes it all the way for the touchdown. That made it 24-14. And I was like, that's ball game. Can't even get mad. Malik Rozier, quarterback from Miami, that's what's holding them back. No doubt about that. He only had 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I hope that the committee's not gonna take the U. Like they're gonna drop out of the top 4, but I hope they don't fall, like take them out to like number 8 or number 7. Because you know what, the worst thing that could have happened to Miami was Alabama losing. Because now with Alabama losing, you're gonna see them probably be number 5 or number 6. In the playoff ranking. Because Georgia won, so dude, like I said, it's just complete chaos right now. Alabama losing was the worst possible thing that could have happened for Miami. Now Clemson's probably going to move up to number 1. Oklahoma's going to be number 2. Then let's see, you got Wisconsin. Yeah, it's probably going to be Clemson, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Auburn in the top 4. I'm probably going to go Clemson number 1, Oklahoma number 2, and then I think the committee's going to have Wisconsin at number 3. Who knows? Maybe they'll have Auburn at number 3. They'll have Wisconsin at number 3 because they're undefeated, and Auburn is a 2-loss team. So that's going to be the top 4. And then I think it's either going to be Georgia or Alabama at number 5. At number 5 and number 6, they're going to be interchangeable right there. You're not really sure. And then, it's not looking good. It's going to be how do you say? It's going to be Miami at number 7 most likely, or Ohio State at number 7, Miami at number 8. I think if Ohio State, like I said, there's just so much chaos going on right now in college football. Let me see if I can pull up the title games right now. All right, so I got the title games right here. Okay, so again, the ones that are going to have playoff implications. Oklahoma facing off with TCU. If TCU wins that one, then boom, Oklahoma's out. So okay, they're going to be in the top 4 again for this week. And then Georgia and Auburn. Georgia wins, boom, they're in the top 4. If Auburn wins, they're going to stay in the top 4. So, like, Alabama, dude, like, my head is, all right, so, like, let's see. Alabama would need TCU to win. They'd need Georgia to win. They'd need Miami to win. And they'd need Ohio State to win. And that's how, I'm not sure if they're going to need all of them to win in order for Alabama to get in, but I think that's the most likely way that they get in, okay? And then for Miami to get in, I think if Miami to get in, I think all they got to do is beat Clemson, I think. Because, like I said, Georgia's going to be ranked number 5 or number 6. They're going to be able to jump them. And then, and like I said, Alabama's most likely going to be ranked ahead of Miami, but honestly, this is just wishful thinking. I think for Miami to get in, they need Clemson. They need to beat Clemson, and then they need Ohio State to win. Yeah, so they're going to need Ohio State to win, or they're going to need TCU to beat Oklahoma. And they need, dude, my head is spinning. I know I'm not making really much sense, but honestly, this whole college football playoff ranking, like, it's not going to make any sense. Like, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. It's honestly kind of incredible how I'm, like, excited to see how it's all going to end up. I just really want the U in the top 4. It's not looking likely because I know a lot of writers and stuff like that are really kind of down on them since they lost to Pitt. I know Miami doesn't really blow out teams like other people want them to. Like, people, when you talk college football, it's not really about the wins and losses. No matter what they say, it's about how you win. And like Auburn, they're a 2-loss team, okay, but you know what? They beat Alabama, and I think it was let me double check the score, but I think it was like 28-16 or something around there. So Auburn, it's like pretty much like I said, they're a 2-loss team, but it's all about how you win. It's not about how much you win, it's about how you win. And that's one thing I don't like about college football. I mean, I understand like you want the best teams out there in the top 4, but I mean, like Wisconsin, they're undefeated and they're still not in the top 4. I mean, they're going to be after this week most likely, but I just don't understand. It's like the committee's been waiting for them to go to the Big Ten championship game. Oh yeah, let's put Wisconsin in there now, and then boom, they're probably, I think, yeah, I'm going to pick Ohio State in that one, but it's like the committee's waiting for Wisconsin. Like, we're going to put them in, and they're going to lose Ohio State, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, see, this is why we didn't put them in. But yeah, it's just pretty crazy. I mean, let me give you my top 4. My top 4 for how I think it's going to end up, and then it's obviously going to change once these games are played this weekend. And so let's just give it right here. I think I'm going to go. God, this is so difficult. I'm going to go Oklahoma at number 1, then Auburn at number 2, and then Alabama. I'm not even sure. Do I want Alabama or Ohio State? I'm gonna go Alabama at number 3, and I'm gonna go Miami at number 4, because that's honestly, like, I know I've been kind of like a Miami homer, I guess I sounded like, but I honestly think Miami's gonna be able to beat Clemson, because I just really think Miami's defense is gonna shut them down. So yeah, that's gonna be my top 4 right there. Like I said, we're gonna talk more about it next week after these championship games are played, but that's gonna wrap it up for this podcast. This talking about college football really made I got so confused, and just my brain was just twisting and turning right now, but that was just fun to talk about. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. We're going to be back tomorrow. And once again, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. Tomorrow's show, we're going to be recapping the Monday night game between the Texans and Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk about pretty much how we do it with every Tuesday show for the football show. We'll talk about in the second segment, we'll talk about like what's going on in the AFC, what's going on in the NFC for the third segment, and then pretty much the last segment, maybe we'll talk some more college football just to make it a little bit more clear and all that, but talk about pretty much anything else going on in the world of football. So yeah, stay tuned for tomorrow. But once again, this is the GSMC Football Podcast, and I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. Stay tuned for tomorrow, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.